Hi, I'm Yaakov Horowitz, and I wanted to share some thoughts and reflections on the life of Noviminsker Rebbe ZT'l. It's kind of hard for me to say those ZT'l together with his name, on the passing of the Noviminsker Rebbe. In addition to the pain and the loss of his Petira, of his passing, I cannot help but have real regrets that we didn't get a chance to be there at his funeral, at his levaya, and to give a kavod achron that he should have had the type of levaya, funeral, for a genuine Gadol B'Yisrael, a great man, a great leader of the Jewish people. I don't pretend to know why things happen, but I would like to share two thoughts on this specific point of the timing of his passing. First of all, I think it was really a reflection of his life. The Rebbe was an extraordinary blend of godless, of greatness, and humility at the same time. He just spending any amount of time in his presence really left you with the understanding that this was a great man. My wife Udi was best friends with his niece Suri Landinsky-Tversky. When she was a teenager, the Rebbe was in his 50s. And, she was just mentioning today when we heard of his passing how she clearly got the impression of this great man. He hadn't yet assumed his leadership position in Klal Yisrael among the Jewish people. His yeshiva wasn't what it was later in life. But his thoughts and his learning, his sitkis, his piety, and he was so approachable. He was so approachable. The words that came to mind in Yiddish, it's called der Heibin, elevated. I had the pleasure of spending 5 summers with the Rebbe ZT'l in a much quieter setting. I was assistant learning director in Camp Re'im, and the Rebbe ZT'l and his yeshiva rented a large space from the camp. And during that time, I got to see the Rebbe, watching him interacting with his talmidim, his students, and they were so much a reflection of him. Honestly, it reminded me of the Tarvadas that we went to, a lifetime ago. There was there was an elevated sense watching the boys learn and daven, and they played ball, and they were with it, and normal, and so approachable. It was so. It so captured really who the Rebbe was. His words were measured. His thoughts, everything he said clearly, had thought behind it. I read a great quote once that humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. And that really was the Rebbe. He understood his role, especially later in life. He understood his role in Klal Yisrael and among the Jewish people, and in his yeshiva and his shul. But just like when you heard him say at a speech, you heard him say the words Agudas Yisrael, the Agudah, which he became, he served virtually all his life, but especially in the last 22 years. After Rabbi Sher ZT'l passed away, he assumed a tremendous achrayus and responsibility of being the titular head of the Rosh Agudas Yisrael. But it was never about him. It was always about the organization, about Klal Yisrael, about people. He was a genuine Eved Hashem, and the number one word that when I think of him, I think of the word achrayus. Achrayus means responsibility. And he really felt a responsibility way beyond his own life and way beyond his own yeshiva, but indeed to the Jewish people. And he was such an articulate spokesman for Klal Yisrael, speaking in Yiddish and in English, in every way representing all of us. And like I said, I think that this perhaps may have been a reflection of his inner wishes of not having that tremendous kavod achron that he most certainly and richly deserved. And my second thought was that it was his final chance to give us hadracha, to give us guidance. This funeral and the publicity around it that just said, the Rebbe passed away, and in accordance, the family, we asked that nobody attend the funeral because of, the corona disease and the need for social distancing. The Rebbe's request was that that's the way that we should follow the law of the land and follow the advice of our doctors. In fact, probably the Rebbe's last public appearance was in a video that he made. It so happens I somehow I didn't see it until this morning. I did post it, but the Rebbe made a short 2-minute video speaking to people and speaking about the importance of closing the shuls and closing the Bati Midrashim, the study halls, deeply painful as it was to do so, but to follow the rules of the law of the land and follow the advice of the doctors and public health officials. And it's something the Rebbe spoke about often, about Kiddush Hashem. He was genuinely, like we'd say, by Yaakov Avinu's dream. He was a Sulam Mutzav Arza. Yaakov had this dream about the ladder. It's a Sulam Mutzav Arza. There was a ladder that was in the ground. It was stuck in the ground, so to speak. It was grounded. V'roisha Magia Hashemayim, and the top of the ladder it was up in the heavens. And that's the way he was. He was grounded so much in this world, and so much impressed upon all of us the importance of making a Kiddush Hashem, of sanctifying God's name, not just in our religious pursuits, not just in learning and davening, but equally, or perhaps even more so, in the way we conduct our lives with integrity and honesty. He gave a very famous speech at an Aguda convention, Matzai Shabbos, a number of years ago, probably 20 years ago, and it made a very deep impression on me. And I went over and thanked him for it. I thanked him deeply for it. And I'll never forget, he looked at me and he said, "Okay, Rabbi Yaakov, now live your life like that." And I certainly hope to. Rebbe, Klal Yisrael is going to miss you very much. You left us a wonderful legacy, a wonderful hadracha in the way you lived your life, in the way you raised your family and your talmidim. Chaval al de'avdim v'loy mishtakchen. Yehi zecher chabarach. Your memory should forever be a blessing, and we should be zeicher, we should merit following in your ways.